Level 989.
Welcome to episode 5 of 989 on Health, a show where you don't need years of university to understand the latest news about health and related subjects.
An important announcement for our listeners. This podcast is intended to be an informal tool for laymen and practitioners alike to hear our viewpoints on health and wellness. Don't rely on the information in this podcast as an alternative to medical advice from your doctor or other professional healthcare provider. For the full disclaimer, please see our website.
I'm Mike Davalos, just a guy, an average Joe. If I opened a book, there'd better be pictures. And I'm joined by the opposite of average, Brandon Weintraub, a primary care physician. Good morning, Brandon.
And a very good morning to you, Mike.
Now, we've got some follow-up from episode 4, which was about sleep. Now, when you've got a job that requires you to occasionally work a midnight to 9 a.m. shift, which I do once a week, or when you're dealing with jet lag or some other sleep-deprived state, I know it might depend on the exact details, but what's better? Catch a nap, a few hours of sleep as you can, and then get back to your day, or just stay up until your next normal bedtime and get back to your proper sleep routine?
On the whole, it's generally better not to nap more than 30 minutes. Even though going to sleep for a few hours can seem like you're just catching up, it's still a nap, and it's functionally the same thing. So you want to make sure you don't sleep for more than 30 minutes, and then get back on your regular sleep schedule as soon as possible.
Okay, and one more sleep-related question. The other night, I got kind of wrapped up in my Veronica Mars watching, and the next thing I knew, it was 1 a.m., and I had been planning to go to bed at 11. These days, we depend on our smartphones to get us through the day, setting reminders, calendar entries, appointments. This might be silly, but do you think it would be worthwhile to add sleep in as a daily scheduled task? You know, recurring task item, midnight to 8 a.m., sleep. Maybe with a reminder chime at 11 to wrap up what I'm in the middle of, another chime at 11:30 to start my sleepy time prep.
Well, one of the most important things when it comes to sleep is making sure you stick to a good schedule. And also give yourself time to prepare for sleep. If setting an alarm is what it takes, sure, it's a great idea. Just be careful not to keep the screen on too long. The light from electronic devices can actually activate your brain, and if you're exposed to it for too long, it'll actually keep you awake. So it's definitely a good idea, if you need it, to set that first alarm. And I especially like the idea of that second alarm. Give yourself that time to prepare yourself to go to sleep.
Our topic for today is food. For most of human history, we ate good, wholesome food. That's all there was, right? Powdered donuts with butterscotch drizzle didn't exist yet. Well, not to destroy the image that the past was this beautiful, perfect place, but fast food was invented thousands of years ago. For most people in history, it wasn't sweet treats that were the problem. There wasn't a lot of choice when it came to food. If your dad is a fisherman, you're going to eat a lot of fish. If your family's growing corn, you're going to eat a lot of corn. There's even a known disorder, pellagra, that causes everything from these awful skin sores to dementia. Now that comes from eating too much corn without enough other variety in your diet. Now, Brandon, pellagra's a real thing, right? It's not just someone getting all creative on Wikipedia.
Sure, pellagra is definitely real, though it's pretty uncommon these days in the more developed countries. You're right to be wary. Be careful of Wikipedia, or really any article for that matter. Make sure to check other sources as well.
Good to know. Now, in nature, food is scarce. It's hard to come by. If you give any animal the options, they're going to prefer the foods with the most calories, high in fats and carbs, packing as much energy as possible. That's why fat and sugar taste good. It's a signal from your body saying, yes, eat this. Calories mean an animal can survive predators, harsh winters, and live to breeding age, and then survive the huge impacts that having and caring for offspring come with. But we've invented concentrated foods that are so rich and delicious and tempting. Our biology and decision-making aren't properly calibrated to stop us at the right time, or ever stop us. Animals didn't exist on Earth for millions of years with choices between delicious food that would kill them sooner along healthy food that would increase their lifespan. Brandon, I think today's going to be kind of rough on you, not because the questions are finally getting harder, but just because of the topic.
As much as I hate to say it, I think you're going to be right. But for the good of our listeners, I'll do my best to soldier on.
I'm glad you're the smart one, because thousands of books and millions of words have been written about food and diet, and what fresh perspective could we bring to it? And if you had to distill down your advice to just a couple of simple sentences, what would they be? And before you really get rolling, I don't know how useful all the dry molecular biology terms can be. I'm not asking for detailed analysis of the mono-polyunsaturated triglycerides. Just be clear and say, stop eating anything with the word syrup or lard in the ingredient list. That's the kind of advice I can remember and hopefully act on. No pressure. Go.
Okay. A fresh perspective is going to be difficult, if not impossible. And really, that's not my goal. Let's be clear. While there are a couple of general rules that can help people eat more healthily and improve their overall health, everyone really does have a different metabolism. Everyone really does have different food requirements. I had a classmate in my Oriental medicine program who was thin as a rail. I watched him on a regular basis eat half a pizza, or 2 full restaurant dinners, or 3 desserts followed by another dessert, and he never ever gained a single pound. He worked out a bit, but not enough to actually burn all those calories he was eating, and I still watched as he lost weight. If I had tried to keep up with him, I would have gained a ton of weight, even spending 3 times as much time at the gym as he did. Why? There are 100 different possible reasons, but the important message to take away is that our body processes what we eat in different ways.
Okay, hold on. I said short sentences. I want rules, advice.
Okay. 1. High fructose fill in the blank. Stop eating it and be aware of what it is in, which is more things than you might imagine. 2. Saturated fats. Sorry, I have to use the sciencey word here. Don't be afraid of them. Be careful of the other types of fats. 3. Grass-fed, pasture-raised, hormone-free. You hear these words all the time, but very few people actually know what they mean. Don't just follow the hype. Learn what these terms actually mean. Eat appropriately. The hard and fast rule from me would be, happy animals make better meals. And finally, balance your meals where possible. You want to keep the vegetable content high, the meat content secondary, and the carbohydrates tertiary. And the problem is that this last rule is the most variable. Some people will get better results for their body type with different balances.
It seems like the primary reasons to be cautious about sugars and bad fats is they lead to heart disease, which is currently the number 1 cause of death, by the way. It's so weird to think that the number 1 cause of death is preventable. I just want to say that again. The number 1 cause of death is preventable. The number 2 cause of death is cancer, by the way, which we'll definitely devote more time to in the future. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but one of the big contributing factors to getting cancer is chronic inflammation, which diet also plays a big part in. So heart disease from bad diet is preventable, which is 75 years of constant vigilance about everything we put into our mouths. Yeah, easy. Is it possible for an adult to actually make the necessary changes to their diet? I have way too many bad habits.
It's definitely possible for anyone to make useful and necessary changes to their diets. The downfall for most people who begin the journey towards healthy eating is the word that has become synonymous with healthy eating: diet. When people think of going on a diet, they often mean a recent fad, seen on their favorite daytime TV show or espoused in the latest documentary a friend suggested they watch on Netflix. And it's often an attempt to shed pounds of belly fat while eating as much of, fill in your favorite food here, as you want. If you really want to start improving your health by changing what you eat, the most important thing you can do is realize why you need to change a particular habit, and recognize that the change isn't until I can fit into my new bathing suit, but a life change. These changes also aren't going to happen overnight. Almost anyone who wakes up tomorrow and says to themselves, "Today is the last day I eat fat-filled sugary delights," will find themselves degenerating into bad habits before they know it. Changing your diet to improve your health will only really work if you make small, reasonable, sustainable changes, one by one. getting healthy isn't something that happens in an instant. Every tiny step brings you a little bit closer to your goal.
There are a lot of people, my own mother included, who often skip breakfast, either intentionally or as a way to cut calories or because they're just not hungry. I've even had friends who say they're less hungry throughout the day if they skip breakfast. How do you feel about your patients skipping breakfast or any meal?
Alright, I hate to admit it, but this is another one of those situations where I tend to fall short. Do as I say, not as I do. But I'm getting better. So modern theory held for some time that 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, were the healthiest option if you wanted to fuel your body correctly. Many people, after a long night of not sleeping enough, wake up to find themselves not yet hungry for breakfast, so they'll skip it. Worse, when they do eat breakfast, they're actually more hungry for lunch, which is of course awful, right? In fact, eating breakfast causes your body's metabolism to increase. And that means that eating breakfast may actually cause you to burn more calories over the course of the day. Sure, you may end up being hungrier for lunch, but that's potentially a sign that your body actually needs those additional calories to function correctly, and that your breakfast has gotten you off to the right start. Skipping meals can lead to blood sugar regulation issues, digestive problems, at least, and can actually cause the body to burn fewer calories over time. So rather than skipping a meal and then gorging later in the day, eating several smaller meals throughout the day. Modern research says 5 to 7 meals may actually be ideal. Can be extremely beneficial to your overall health.
We're all supposed to be counting calories, or at least be aware of what we're taking in every day. But what exactly is a calorie? And if I'm supposed to get 2,000 calories a day, is there a difference between having a meal where I'm getting 50 calories from fat compared to a different meal where I'm getting 50 calories from protein or 50 calories from carbs?
I'm going to try to oversimplify a bit. A calorie is a measure for a unit of energy. It's the amount of energy required to raise 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Everything which contains energy contains calories. That means that piece of wood you just tossed onto your campfire to the stalk of celery that you just grabbed from the fridge. Your body needs a certain amount of energy to function. Get too little, and your body has to take steps to conserve. Get too much, and that extra energy has to be stored somehow. Since everything that contains energy has calories, just a measure of energy, remember, there isn't really a difference between 50 calories from fat or from protein, or from carbs. But the biological processes your body will need to go through to extract that energy into a usable form will be different. The content of calories between fats, carbs, and proteins is also different. A gram of fat contains about 9 calories, while a gram of protein or carbohydrates contain about 4 calories. And I know you didn't ask, but that 2,000 calorie a day estimate is something I question pretty emphatically. The number seems to vary from source to source and agency to agency. We'll post a link on our website if you want to learn more.
One simple piece of advice I've always liked, when you're holding a piece of food and you're considering eating it, is the food in its natural state? Did it grow like that? So in this test, the powdered donut fails, but the banana passes. But it turns out the bananas are high in calories, higher than you might think. They're often an ingredient in shakes that people are drinking when they're working out and trying to add pounds. Now, you've known me for years, and one of the things you've teased me about is how many bananas I eat. It's a fruit. I thought it was a good snack choice. Should I cut out the bananas?
Some bananas are fine. As with many of the answers I've given, I believe balance and moderation is a key factor. A certain amount of fruit is good for you, but fruit contains sugars. Big surprise, I know. Something as sweet as fruit containing sugar. And although the claim is that natural sugar is better than added sugar, it's still going to affect your blood sugar levels. Bananas contain electrolytes and other nutrients, which in moderation are needed by the body, but in excess can cause problems. I actually did a search for what happens if I eat too many bananas, and was surprised to find out that there were a decent number of websites and articles written on just that topic. We'll post a link to one of the articles that I found particularly interesting. It lists the negative physical symptoms you might see just from eating too many bananas. I didn't actually follow up with the article by checking the science behind it, so please don't take it as definitive fact, but I thought it was a really interesting read. So go ahead and enjoy a daily banana, or even two. Just make sure not to overdo it.
That's good to hear, because I think I'm addicted to bananas at this point. I have a couple of things in my favor that a lot of people don't. My sense of taste isn't really that strong, and I'm probably one of the least picky eaters I know. If I'm hungry and something in the fridge is probably not spoiled, I'll eat it, even if it tastes pretty blah. It's sustenance. But a lot of people have gone years without eating blah sustenance. They only eat yummy things. It's like they worked hard for their money and they want their food to be tasty. They won't settle for anything blah. But the salt and the fat and the sugar is usually what's making these things taste good. Any thoughts on that?
It's unfortunately true that the tastiest foods are, more often than not, those that contain higher amounts of delicious fats, salts, sugars, carcinogens, than is rightly good for us. It turns out that crispy awesomeness on the outside of the marshmallow you just roasted is actually pretty bad for you. In many instances, the foods that are good for us often don't taste quite as nice. Just try putting out a veggie platter without your ranch dressing and see how slowly those vegetables disappear. However, even healthy foods really can taste good. And like I said in a previous question, even small steps can help bring a patient towards healthier habits. Restaurants overall use a ton of fats and salts in their dishes. Like you said, it just tastes better. So you don't have to forego your favorite meal. Try making it at home instead of ordering out. You'll have control of what you put in it, how much you add, and the quality of the ingredients you use. Even though you might have more fat than you ought to get in one sitting, you'll still be reducing your overall intake and taking steps in the right direction.
There are a few unfortunate things I've noticed about trying to eat healthier. One, I've never seen fruits or veggies in the buy one, get one free table, but I have never been to the store when cookies were not BOGO. Speaking of cookies, they could last for months in my pantry. Well, they could if I had any willpower. But fresh, healthy foods seem to wither or get discolored within a couple of days. And three, healthy foods are typically unprocessed foods, which means more work for me. More cleaning, trimming, dicing, cooking, more time. Is it just me, or does eating healthier cost more, require more trips to the store, and take longer to prepare and cook? I'm not trying to talk anyone out of eating healthy, but these seem like real speed bumps. And if I'm right, how can you really expect me to conjure up more money and more time? I'm tired.
I definitely understand the I'm tired concept, especially when it comes to eating healthy. I have to admit that on the surface, eating healthy does seem to cost more these days. What we've begun to see is that items we would have otherwise gotten locally, fresh fruit and veggies, meats and dairy, more or less anything fresh and perishable, have had to follow new methodologies that are better adapted to non-perishable items and mass-produce non-food items. What that means is that there are farming practices that are not ideal. And if you want fresh food, there's been a 180 from the way it should be. The stuff you shouldn't eat is cheap, but the stuff you really need to eat is either more expensive or unavailable. As for more time-consuming, well, there's a reason that chicken wings can be purchased for $3.99 a pound at your local meat market, but it costs 50 cents a wing on cheap wing day at your local tavern. You're paying for the ease of food straight to your plate.
Great. So you've disagreed with everything I said and maybe determined that eating pre-prepared food is the only option for me as a money-conscious, lazy consumer.
Well, hold on. While all of the above is true, it doesn't mean that you can't make wholesome, healthy food fit into your budget and actually end up saving money and time. Example. I go to my local market and pick up a 4-pound pork shoulder for $7. It isn't the grass-fed local meat I'd really like to buy, but it's on sale for a great price. I also pick up a stack of corn tortillas, 2 ingredients, corn and lime, for $4. Some cilantro, some fresh lime, pickled jalapenos, and a fresh in-store homemade salsa. Yeah, I was lazy and had them chop up the ingredients for me. And that's about $10 more. So total, I've spent about $21, which is a fair sum, especially since I think you can get double cheeseburgers from a fast food joint at $1 a piece. So, I head home, toss the pork shoulder in the oven at a super low temperature for 10 hours. Yeah, that means I can clean the house, feed the cats, anything else I need to do, all while dinner is cooking. About 20 minutes before I want to eat, I'll go ahead and chop up that lime and the fresh cilantro, and I'll grab the tortillas and the salsa. Fresh, nice, low-fat, low-sodium meal. If that was it, I could see the argument that it still wasn't worth it. But now I have leftovers, and really good ones at that, for a couple of days. If I have 3 meals from that purchase, I've spent $7 a meal, less than any meal from a non-fast food restaurant, and I know I've eaten reasonably well. Take the same concept and cook a few meals over the course of a week, and you've got a healthier alternative that will not only taste better than most of the things you get out, it also helps keep you healthy and helps you reach those dietary goals you've set for yourself.
You're listening to Cooking with Brandon. I happened to look at the Starbucks website the other day, and I noticed that the Venti Frappuccino I love so much has almost 500 calories in it. That's like having an extra meal. And forget about the brownie I usually have on the side. I don't even want to think about how many calories are in that. So why does coffee have so many calories in it?
Okay, your average cup of coffee has anywhere between 2 to 10 calories per cup. I hate to say it, but it's all of those delicious sugars, chocolate syrups, the whole cream they add to those fraps that make it so calorific. In fact, some recent studies actually seem to indicate that a single cup, or 2, of coffee in the morning may actually help your body to burn more calories throughout the day. But research is definitely conflicting on that fact, so don't use it as an excuse to drink more coffee.
I think the number one reason people eat processed crap is that it's quick and easy. Quaker Oatmeal Squares cereal is my go-to in the morning because I don't even need to warm it up. Might make me sound lazy, but you can't ask me to switch to healthy options if they're going to require more time than I'm already spending on bad food. So can you point us to some nice lists online? Some quick and easy healthy foods?
It depends on what kind of healthy food you mean. If you're looking for recipes, you can always check allrecipes.com. We'll put a link on our website. It's one of my favorite sites for recipes in general, and they always have great ideas.
Great. Let's say I've got my healthy diet locked in. I'm following a good plan that works for me. One thing that I think is more accepted now than it was even a few years ago is the idea that it's okay to have a cheat day and indulge a bit in the things you crave. I personally crave these cranberry orange muffins from the Fresh Market. They come in a 4-pack, but you can also buy them individually. I try to exercise some proactive portion control and buy only one. Otherwise, within 2 days, I will have eaten all 4. So what are your thoughts? How do you feel about cheat days? Oh, and what do you crave on cheat days if you have one?
The idea of a cheat day is generally accepted by most people who look at their eating habits as something that is difficult to maintain. The overall I'm on a diet mentality I mentioned in a previous question, rather than the I've changed my diet, which is what we really want to see. If you've changed your diet, the idea of a cheat day becomes unnecessary. You've actually managed to change the way you eat, so you don't really have that same list of no-go foods. That said, that's a bit idealistic. Realistically, there's going to be a few foods that you've recognized you probably should give up, and have given up, but it kind of sticks with you as a comfort food or your guilty pleasure. For me, that's almost always something involving way too much sugar. I love my baked goods. Cakes, cookies, pies, you name it. However, since I'm gluten-free, more or less, and have cut back on my sugar intake, those sorts of things are actually off my menu. When I cheat, I go all out. I make a nice gluten-free cake from scratch, put together a wonderful icing, and that's it. But because I made it all from scratch, and I used ingredients that are actually decent for me overall, that slice of cake isn't the same as, for example, that guilt-ridden donut binge at the office. So, if you find that your diet changes are going well, but still feel like you miss those comfort foods, my suggestion is to go ahead and enjoy one day a week where you give yourself license to have some of those food items that you miss. Enjoy a few of those guilty pleasures, knowing that at the end of the day, you have a firm and honest conviction to return to your healthy lifestyle for the rest of the week. I really mean it though. when I say that if you're changing your diet rather than dieting, you're not going to need those cheat days, and you're not going to see those foods in the same light. It may turn out that your cheat days aren't really cheat days anymore.
Okay, so aside from cheat days, there's a food hug to consider. That's what I call it anyway. There's eating crummy processed foods day in, day out because it's affordable, quick, and easy to prepare. And then there's eating crummy foods because I worked hard today and my boss doesn't appreciate the work I do and I deserve a treat. Because I had an argument with my family and I'm feeling sad. Because life is really a grind right now and eating 4 cranberry orange muffins and 2 tall glasses of cold eggnog will be delicious and I will love every minute of it and it will give me 20 minutes of pure bliss that I totally deserve. Food hugs. Thoughts?
I think that if I had to choose between a food hug and a cheat day, I'd rather our listeners had a cheat day. What you call a food hug is also known as comfort eating. Food can cause the release of neurochemicals in the brain that give a temporary sense of enjoyment, a feeling of satisfaction, a flood of positive emotion, which on the surface, and temporarily, may seem like a really good thing. Unfortunately, the foods that often evoke these sensations are often those that have really high contents of sugars, fats, and processed ingredients, and have little to no nutritional value. It may seem harmless, but for many Americans, it's easier to try to eat bad foods in an attempt to resolve problems than it is to try to solve those problems. And for the most part, a muffin is not your friend in solving complex problems. It's only a short jump from, I deserve this cookie right now, just the one, to, okay, 4 cookies, chicken fingers, and a soda is okay for today. I don't need anything else, so I won't eat too many calories, I swear. A much better option, for most people, is going to be to continue eating healthy, wholesome food, do a little physical exercise, and yes, exercise can actually release the same neurochemicals, so that's good. Just remember that too much exercise can be unhealthy too. And try to deal with the emotional source of the food hug craving.
Is there anything else we need to mention before we wrap it up?
Well, it's time for the usual preachy portion of our podcast. Food is one of the most difficult topics we will ever discuss. For every possible question, there are 100 different opinions and just as many conflicting answers. We've covered all the main pillars of health so far, at least as I see them: stress, sleep, exercise, and now food. Of those, food may be the most important to get a handle on. Without adequate and appropriate nutrition, none of the body's processes will function correctly, which means your stress levels will be more difficult to control, your sleep patterns may be affected, and your ability, desire, or even results of your exercise may not be what you need or expect them to be. In the end, the best thing you can do is try to gather as much information about ideal eating habits and try to apply them slowly to your own life and retain what works best for you. Each person's body really is different, and the balance of carbohydrates, fats, sugars, proteins, these are going to be a little bit different for everyone. Find the balances that work for your goals, and as you progress and your goals change, you can change your food habits as well. It's a difficult thing to change how you eat and what you eat. So just take it one small step at a time, and before you know it, you'll have changed how you live your life.
That's all the time we have for today. These are short episodes that provide a brief overview of very complex topics. Everything we say is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Licensed healthcare professionals should advise you and be aware of changes you make to any aspect of your healthcare. Every person's needs are different. The links to references we've made about news articles, medical studies, or other materials can be found at level989.com/health, along with our contact information and the complete Don't Take Medical Advice from Podcasts disclaimer. Thanks for listening, and now go health yourself.